Hey, small business owners. Have your sales gone up but your bank account doesn't? Has getting to know your numbers been on your to-do list for a while? Let's face it, you're good at doing the work in your business, but the money is hard. Have you noticed that by the time you pay your bills and pay everyone else each month, there's just not that much left for you? It's just not fair. As a business owner, you know you deserve to be getting paid more than you are, but you just can't seem to figure out where all the money went. What if there was another way? What if there was a way to tell your money where to go instead of wondering where it went? What if you had money in your bank accounts at the end of the month to show for all your hard work? Well, this is the sign you've been looking for, that you're not alone and help is just a call away. The team at Likes Accounting prides themselves on being financial translators that can help you find smarter ways to make money, save money, and finally start paying yourself a salary that you deserve. Working with Likes Accounting not only helps you know your numbers, but they're cheerleaders helping you build a more profitable lifestyle business. The team at Likes Accounting are just a bunch of numbers nerds. They're all self-employed experts with experience in your industry. Megan, the owner, is not only fun, easy to understand, and crazy smart, she's even a CPA. Tech to CEO listeners get a free review of their QuickBooks online when they mention this podcast and visit likesaccounting.com. Again, get a free review of your financial data when you visit likesaccounting.com and the Tech to CEO podcast.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Technician to CEO. I'm your host, Wesley Maria with Bergflow. And today we're joined by Chandler, CEO of Focused Environmental Services. Tyler, what does Focused Environmental Services do?
So Focused Environmental Services primarily focuses on mold remediation, as well as we do limited decontamination for viruses, as well as odors inside of residential properties being our main focus. We do have a couple of commercial clients that we've worked with, but most of ours is focused right around the real estate transaction.
Okay. So you guys, obviously your business is hinged around, successful transaction on the real estate side. Obviously not on the commercial side, but, definitely on the residential side. Cool. So I've got a couple of things that I want to dive into. Obviously I know a little bit about you. We've spoken offline a little bit. You guys have been running, this is effectively a new business out of a sister or a parent business. Yes. How long have you guys been running this business?
So this business has been up and running for 2.5 years.
Okay.
We've been doing mold work the last year of that. We started during the pandemic and had to jump through a bunch of hoops for that to get everything up and running due to state shutdowns and waiting on licensing. And so it's been an interesting 2.5 year stretch so far.
Oh, nice, man. So what was that journey like? I mean, what did you before you stepped into this CEO role?
Before I stepped into this, I was actually a home inspector for our sister company. One of the lead inspectors, and was training new inspectors there. We decided to branch out into this, and it was primarily because we were seeing a need in the market up here. There wasn't enough people servicing the mold industry without trying to take advantage and scaring people. So the shift was something I wanted to do. My father owns the sister company that I came from. Started this up so that I could build this and run more in an avenue I liked. And it's been a learning curve. Definitely every day is something new.
Yeah. So the journey for you from, being a lead inspector or a lead technician in your dad's other business, now starting this business you guys have been running for 2.5 years. At what point did you realize I want to take on this journey to be a CEO?
I think that I was looking for an opportunity after coming out of the military. It's been a few years going to school, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And end of the day, as I knew I wanted to build something or run something I could build and grow myself. It's the different mindset between showing up to work 9 to 5, collect your paycheck, than it is trying to figure out how to grow something and opportunities for other people.
Yeah, that's definitely a change in mindset, because when you show up for work as a technician, even in your own business, you're just worried about getting the job done. There's a hyper focus on skill. When you step into that CEO role, there's a higher demand for you to focus on leadership skill and some of the softer skills, things that you can't go to leadership school. You can't get a degree in leadership. So you can get technically trained, but I think what separates owner operators versus CEOs is the vision that they have. An owner operator always just wants to be part of the solution. They want to have control over every single aspect of the business, being involved with it, where somebody that elects to go to the CEO route, they have a bigger vision. I spoke to that point on another episode, is having a vision that's bigger than yourself. And you mentioned it, is wanting to build something for other people. And I think that's the hard yards that people have to walk.
And it's the biggest stumbling block when it comes to that transition. It's hard to go from being the technician, knowing how to do the job, to letting somebody else do the job and then come to you that, oh, hey, I found a better way to do it. You're like, okay, let me sit back and give that a chance.
Yeah. Let me park my ego, because I've done it for 20 years my way, and now you're telling me that there's a better way. Yeah. That's definitely one of the things that we see a lot with business owners, is letting go of their need to, well, I've always done it this way and I want everybody to hold to my standard. And you have to, as a CEO, be open to improvements, letting your team, the team that you lead, bring improvements about. So yeah, I definitely think that's one of the harder things to do. On this journey to becoming a CEO, a lot of people, it's not like it's my New Year's resolution from next year I want to be a CEO. That's something that grows within us. It's something that we aspire to become, not because of the title, but because of the ability that it allows us to influence at a wider scale. How have you grown because of this? How have you grown as an individual or a leader because of your decision to take on this journey?
So in taking on this journey, and the difference between leading here than vice leading when I was back in the military, mission was always set for me. And I always knew, okay, this is the cog. I'm this cog in the wheel. As long as my guys do what they're supposed to, this is what we accomplish. Here, I'm trying to set a vision that I may not know how to get to.
Yeah.
And leaning on the people around me who have expertise that far outweighs my own in most of the things I do, to get us collectively there. And it's a big change in your thought process when you're trying to, okay, this is where we want to be. I know I don't know X, Y, Z, but I also need to go back to the team to figure out what things I'm not even thinking of that I don't know. And it's constantly learning, constantly evolving. You can learn to be a leader inside of a well-defined system very easily. Learning to lead through the gray area of business is definitely a different beast altogether. Yeah,
it requires, a higher sense of maneuverability, being able to go beyond yourself. We tend to rely on our own skill or our own ability, and sometimes that sets the limit of our vision. Because when we set vision as a CEO, we always say, okay, well, to what point can I lead this? And I think the CEO is the person that says, well, to your point, it's not me setting the vision alone. It's going back to the team and helping me be a better leader. A lot of times when we talk about the technician to CEO mindset, it's, well, I've graduated into CEO world. So now I get to sit in the office, tell people what to do, and then everything's going to happen. When you're a technician, there's hard yards. You're in a crawl space. You're doing mold remediation. You're washing windows. Whatever it is, you're doing the technical skill. When you get to being a CEO, the technical skill that got you here is not what's going to move the needle for your business. It's your ability to adapt. And you said it beautifully, as there's a constant learning as a CEO. There's a constant demand on you to always be leading others and developing yourself, and not just relying on yourself, but relying on your team. I think that's key to the success of any CEO, is having a team around them that makes them better. Because when you build a strong team, they look to you for leadership. You've all drafted that vision. You've all drafted that plan. They're looking for somebody for leadership, not, you said in the military, well, the mission is designed. We know what we're doing. Well, everybody's kind of decided this is the mission. How these pieces fall together can't just sit on the CEO's desk. It's got to be a collaboration. So I think, I had a fireside chat with somebody recently, and when you as a leader, you've got different people and they have different views around stuff. The question is, how do we get them to, as a CEO, how do we get them to work together? Is that common ground in the middle is called culture. It's called collaboration. One person can move all the way through into collaboration space. And if the other leader or the other person, even the CEO, is not willing to move into a state of collaboration, it's always a tennis match. Mm-hmm. My view and your view. And we're looking at it from different sides of the net. So I think a successful CEO is somebody that can bring that together and say, you know what, let's park our personal objectives. Let's park our own agendas and look at the company. Because as much as the CEO is intended to get the company to grow, that's a shared responsibility with the leadership as well.
Yeah. And that's what makes picking the right people as leaders to be key. Right? I've seen plenty of times where people just pick let me pick the most experienced person that I have.
Yeah.
Great. They have a lot of knowledge, but can they lead?
Yeah.
Can they find the middle ground, or does it become they dig their feet in and go, we do it this way because I've done it this long?
Yeah, and that for me, as I have these conversations with CEO, and I really love having these conversations, is there's at that CEO level, there's more and more and more of a focus on how are we going to do it, and very little focus on what is the technical skill. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we train is you hire for attitude and you train for skill. And I've seen a lot of people, CEOs, replace themselves as lead technician because somebody else has a high skill set around being a technician. So a great technician doesn't necessarily make a great CEO. There's a mindset shift that needs to happen. So how is your leadership style? I know that you were, a leader in the previous business you were involved with. How is your leadership style or skill changed?
So stepping into the CEO realm, you have to take a lot more of a broad look at the human aspect to everything you're leading. When it comes down to a technical job, a technical skill, there's only one way to do a job, following technique. So you can train that black and white. When it comes to truly having to lead individuals as a team, you have to open your eyes, kind of realize, okay, your marketing person and your operations person are going to be complete polar opposites of each other most of the time. And you got to figure out how to make them work as a team, make them understand it.
Yeah.
And you'll have times where they get in a discussion about something, they're arguing a point, and they're arguing the same point just from different wording. And it's like, okay, let's take a step back. Yes, you're right. Do that. Yes, you need to do this. They work together. And I've seen it happen time and time again in all aspects of business that you see. There's constantly those things going on. And the higher up you get, the broader you have to look. because you have to not only think about your one level down, but now that I'm not leading just myself and one level below me, I'm now leading everybody. I have to also be concerned with every level. And in that, teach the level below me to then also look, okay, what are your direct reports dealing with? How do they take your information? Are you communicating it correctly? Because simple things can, as they roll downhill, become a massive snowball.
Yeah, and that's very true. I think a lot of CEOs forget that when you move from technician, even owner operator, an owner operator is a CEO by responsibility, but it's not CEO by definition, because when you're an owner operator, you're still part of the outcome based on skill or knowledge or anything like that. When you step into a true CEO role, then you start multiplying the efforts of other people. So your leadership becomes multipliers. And I love the military background that you have, and the experience that you have is, once you start getting to that CEO space, you go into people management mode. That's what you do.
Yep.
If you manage the people, they will manage the business, but you can't manage the business. So I want to jump into something else. We've had some conversations around, what does your network look like? One of the biggest things that I've seen is the CEO journey is a lonely journey, man. There's no pillow talk on how do you feel today or anything like that. One of the biggest things that I come across, dealing with business owners, is they go at it by themselves, and they isolate themselves in this role, because I can't show weakness to my team. I can't show weakness to anybody else because I'm the CEO. The caveat to that is, if you can build a very strong peer-to-peer network, a lot of those data gaps on what the story that you tell yourself, well, maybe I'm not a good CEO, maybe I'm not leading good enough, or maybe I need to learn from somebody else that does it really well. A lot of that can happen in a peer-to-peer network. So what's your opinion around a peer-to-peer network?
It's crucial. It's crucial to have people that you can go to that are at your same level or even above your level, to have those conversations. It even goes back to, my time in the military. I did not show to my juniors the issues that were happening, but I did to my peers and my seniors.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that are going to help me solve the problem. But we got to keep everybody going. And it's difficult. It's easy in the military because it's easy to identify what rank people are wearing. So I know who my peers are. I know who my superiors are. When you come into the CEO realm, most of the people that you know and that you come across on a daily basis are not and will not ever be at that level, because they just want to be technicians. The vast majority of our workforce is happy, even at high performing technicians. It still, break it down, they're a technician level. They want to show up at 9, leave at 5, and that is it. On the weekends, they go out and hang out with family. When you step into the CEO realm and things, that 9 to 5 kind of stops existing. It might be the time you're in the office, but you're sitting at dinner thinking about stuff. So finding people who are like-minded, and who are looking to grow and understand the difference between that owner-operator and the CEO. Because there's a lot of the owner-operators out there. I could go through and probably talk to 10 or 15 here in town that are owner-operators. But again, their vision stops at, okay, how far can I push this? And that's where I'm going to stay.
Because they're basing, the length at which they can go, how high they can push it based on their skill, based on my ability. As you were talking, it reminded me of the saying that you cannot solve a problem at the level at which it originated. So as a CEO, you can help the people below you, but if you need an answer and you're the CEO, who's above you? Who do you go to? Because if you've got a CEO problem, you can't go to your team and say, hey, I need you guys to help me solve the CEO problem. And that, for me, is what the peer-to-peer network is.
Yep.
Is can I go to a place higher than what I am? Maybe that somebody's built a business. Maybe they've been in business longer than I have. Even in a different industry, you get to not solve the problem at the level at which it created. So,
well, when you get to the upper level of leadership, leadership's leadership. You get to the CEO level, it doesn't really matter as much what the end technician's doing to what my leadership has to be. Yeah, I could take a mold remediator or a window washer or whatever at the low end, leading a group of people, especially in a service industry. A lot of the same problems are going to pop up. Regardless of what we actually do for a service. The leading of the individuals and the personalities you deal with, you'll find, are going to be most of the time very similar. So there's a good chance that if I talk to a peer, oh yeah, I had that, and this is how I dealt with it. All right, cool. Now that puts me down a road that I can start looking at. All right, how do I deal with that for my situation?
And that's the beauty about a peer-to-peer relationship, in a community or anything, is you can start focusing on the who, not how. You can continually try and figure out the same thing. I say this often, and many people have heard this, is a lot of people are in business and they repeat the same mistake year after year. And they say, oh, I've been in business for 10 years. Like, no, you've been in a 1-year business for 10 years. Because you've only achieved the same as what you did in the first year, and you're repeating the same things over and over and over. So being able to go beyond that and say, okay, who can I go to that'll help me overcome this challenge? Because that's the sign of a leader. It's somebody that inspires other people to say, you know what, if I don't have the solution, I will go and get it. So who can I go to? And I think that's where, the success and the substance of a peer-to-peer network really sticks with people.
And I also think there's a lot of benefit to, yes, you need to have some peers that are in your same industry, because that helps you with industry-specific problems. But there's a lot to be learned from people outside of your industry that are at the same level as you.
Yeah, because they're not staring the same, they don't have the same blind spots. They're not staring at the same problems that you're having. So I think that fresh perspective, that outside perspective in a peer-to-peer network, not only makes you better as a leader, but it makes you better as a person. Because you've seen this. You put a bunch of CEOs in the same industry, and they've got an hour to talk. For 50 minutes, they'll gripe about the same stuff. Oh, I don't have technicians that show up. Oh, I can't find technicians. I can't, my growth business is not growing fast enough. And it's a 50-minute complaining session and a 10-minute of chin wag. And at the end of that conversation, nothing's changed. Yeah. So you're obviously in this journey, and moving from technician to CEO is a ongoing journey in our life. What advice would you have to help others change their perspective around how they show up?
So the big thing is you have to start by identifying in yourself, like, okay, what is that to you? What does that end look like? For me, that end is not being the CEO of an environmental company. For me, I'm looking to go beyond that. This is one step in the journey. If the goal is that you want to be a CEO and that's it, okay, what is a CEO to you? What does those tasks look like? How do you do them? And then once you figure out an idea of what you think it is, be open for that changing. Because now you're going to go learn. Try to talk to other CEOs, and read books too. There's plenty of it. If you're not reading, I've got 4 books sitting behind me, and that's the ones that I think I've gone through already. I have more of them sitting at basically every room in my house. I've got books that I'm part of the way through, constantly trying to read. And that's important because you have to broaden your perspective somehow. It's very difficult as a technician to go, okay, how do I now step back and be the CEO like that? You don't. It's a constant evolution and learning, and it never stops. So the more you can learn, the more you can talk to people, And the more you can start to understand the individuals around you.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, I think a lot of people, when they're so fixated on getting to that CEO seat or getting to that CEO position, they forget why.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to understand, being a CEO is still a dot in an org chart. You still have responsibilities. You still show up. If you can build a business that can operate without you, it's the journey after a CEO.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't get to the journey. You can't get to that destination after being a CEO if you don't even know the journey to a CEO. And if you were going to hire a good CEO for your business, is you need to know what one looks like. You came up through the ranks. You know what a good technician looks like. You know what a good divisional leader looks like. Now it's time for you to earn your stripes and say, okay, what is a good CEO? Where's my limitations? At what point do I not fit the role of a CEO anymore? Because I'm going to potentially replace myself with somebody that's better than me.
That, and I think the notion of thinking that getting up to being a CEO means life's easy.
Yeah.
I think I love being out as a technician. It's simple. You show up, you do X, Y, Z, and you go home.
Yeah.
The CEO lane, once you're there, and if you're constantly trying to better yourself like you should be, it's always learning. There's always something going. Even when you're sitting down at dinner, it's always thoughts pop up all the time where I have to write that down. Why? Because I don't want to interrupt dinner to think about work, but that thought just popped up and I need that for tomorrow.
Yeah. And that's the thing with, when you're a CEO, a technician has job satisfaction because it's easy for them. Mm-hmm. Oh, I had 5 jobs scheduled today, or, I'm a service leader. I've got to build this system, or I'm a growth leader. I've got to make sure that we produce 10% year over year, or whatever it is. When you're a CEO, it's very difficult for people to articulate what job satisfaction looks like. And you've got to decide for yourself in your business, how are you going to gauge the success? For some people, their biggest struggle might have been retention. So is my success indicator as a CEO my ability to keep people around? Or is my success as a CEO the ability to develop people? Because there's 2 ways that we get highly talented people in our world. We hire them or we cultivate them. Mm-hmm. And it's always easier to work on an established level of trust when you cultivate people into a position, but you have to be careful that you're not basing that decision on skill, the technical skill in the role, because when they move from technician to divisional leader or team leader, there's a new skill set that they're being asked to exhibit. And that's where the CEO has to reinvest back into their leadership.
Yep. And I would say it's easier once you have an more established company to find what a good CEO for you is. It's hard to judge because it's easy to look at it and okay, over the last 5 years, we had trouble with retention.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now this year, now I know my goalpost.
Yeah.
My retention. It's definitely an interesting beast when you don't have historical, okay, where are the weak spots?
Yeah.
Right now, I don't even know where the strong areas are. So I got to figure out, okay, let's do it all, which it just isn't possible for one individual.
And I see a lot of CEOs, they base, the CEO report card or the CEO success card for themselves is, how well is the business doing money-wise? Money is just a report card on the efforts of other people. Mm-hmm. It's, can I amplify their efforts and their results as a CEO? Yes, the money is going to be a report card, but it's not the only thing on the report card. I wasn't that great at school. Some report cards my parents saw, and the others mysteriously disappeared on the last day of school. Because I grew up in the early days where you still had a paper one that you had to give to your parents to sign. So I'm not saying that I forged stuff, but there was some creative handwriting on some of those report cards because some of the things were good and some of them were bad. And there's no way that I can only show the good things. So if you look at the numbers of your business and it's good, well, what are the other things on the report card that you're not addressing because you're hyper focusing on, well, the money's good or the revenue's up. But we've turned and burned 30 people in the last year.
Yeah.
Or our client retention is an issue. So you have to have more of a holistic view. And I think a lot of technicians that step into that CEO role and truly become a CEO are the people that can pull their head out the weeds. They're not in the weeds of the business. They're not, I was talking to a business owner the other day and I said, how do you dispatch your people in the morning? It's like, well, I'll go down to the workshop and I check everybody's got a ladder and this and that. And I'm like, really? Yeah, that's a good CEO. And I'm like, well, that's great at building culture, but the culture that you're also creating is the people are not going to do it because they're used to you doing it. Yeah. It might have worked when you were chucking a truck or one guy, but now you've got 5 trucks. So that means you need to develop 5 strong leaders. You need to develop a service division that looks at some of those bigger things. What are you most excited about for the future, Tyler?
I'm excited about seeing where this goes. See how big this can grow. I know that there's definitely areas I'm weak in, marketing, stuff like that. Yeah. So like building a team that can overcome my own weaknesses and play in their own strengths, and seeing how big you can grow it. To me, and it's not about, okay, how much money can I make? I worried so much about that. I took a pay cut to come out of the field as a technician and start taking over this. It's about building the opportunity. Because if I do everything right and this builds on itself and then continues to grow, the long term, the amount of people that you can impact and the culture you can build around a company is amazing.
Yeah. Because that becomes the attractor. When you build an attractive culture, I hear people say, it's difficult for me to find people, whether it's a technician or a leader or whatever. It's people are attracted to the culture. They want to be part of something where their effort can be seen as I'll make a difference.
And you can pay someone $100,000 a year to clean windows, but if the culture sucks, they're only going to be there a couple of years.
Yeah.
They burn out.
Because contrary to what people think, is money is probably not the biggest motivator. You know that it's ranked 5th as a motivator for people to stay at a company. So let's talk a little bit about what got you here won't get you there. What has been your greatest success up to this point?
Up to this point, my greatest success. As a CEO, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm new down this path, so it's hard to be like, hey, this is the key. This is the point. I still spend a lot of time at all levels doing things. So and I probably tend to focus less on my successes than I do on my failures. Because to me, if everything goes great, cool, we move on and let's worry about the issues.
And see, that's a thing with entrepreneurs and CEOs is when something good happens, well, it was expected. So we kind of chalk it up to that. That's kind of what I was expecting of you.
Yeah.
When things go bad, we hyper focus on that, and sometimes that creates a culture of never good enough. And there has to be a balance. I'm not saying rip out the streamers every time somebody books it lined, but you have to have a culture of saying we can identify the successes. What are the mile markers? We went from X revenue to Y revenue. Our capacity went from 10 a week to 20 a week, whatever it is. Get that success indicator, because the rest of your team, the culture that you're going to build is that of we celebrate wins. So I'm excited about the next win. It's great that we know what we're doing wrong, but sometimes we need to know what we're doing right so that we know we need to do more of it. Just because something happens correctly, it might be the key to the success, but you haven't noticed that it actually happens correctly because you're only focusing on the negative.
And I find it's easier looking at people I'm working with and to identify like, hey, things went great today because of you did X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
I'm always my own worst critic.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, who in your world comes to you and say, hey, Mr. CEO, top of the food chain, sitting in the office by yourself, taking all the responsibility, taking notes at dinner for stuff for tomorrow. What did you do successfully yesterday? And I think that's where, even if you just document it in a journal, even if you just bring it up at a monthly meeting saying, you know what, as a company, we succeeded here. Not, hey, just want to celebrate Tommy, who did a great job in this one thing. Is as a company, we succeeded, because that's an inclusive culture. And I think that's what makes good CEOs. What has been your biggest blunder? And it doesn't have to be around just the CEO. What's your biggest blunder? What's that one thing that you like, man, that just knocked me to the ground and I had to pick myself up?
Oh, there's been a few of those over the years. But I think that in this transition from technician to CEO, the biggest blunder I had there was at the start of this transition is not stepping back and thinking about it. I just kind of went, okay, you want me to do this? Cool. I'm gonna go do this. Now I'm in this position. And it hit me like a freight train once the responsibility set in, because I didn't even know what a CEO really is.
Yeah.
And that's why it's the biggest thing I tell people is to learn. If you think you want to do it, like, learn. Go spend the time. And it's anything you want to do. Like, if you think you want to go be a mechanic, okay, well, go talk to mechanics. Go see what they want to do. See how they do their things. See what goes into it. Because most people don't understand what the sacrifice is truly going to be to go, hey, I want to go do this. Okay, well, to do that, you have to, to be at a CEO level, 9 to 5 might be the office hours.
Yeah.
But if things aren't going well, it could be a lot more than that. If things are going great, you're still probably going to do more than that, because that's just, at that point, your mentality.
There's the saying that says, I gave up my 9 to 5 job as a technician so that I can have a 24-hour job as an owner.
Yeah,
and that's very true. And it sits on the CEO's desk. There's great books out there. Think Like a CEO. A good book that doesn't necessarily speak to it, but for me, there's great lessons in there, is Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman.
Yep.
It talks about the visionary and the integrator. And some CEOs are great at setting vision. They're terrible at execution. And some CEOs might be better at, hey, I know how to move the hard yards on certain things, but I kind of get lost because my tendency is to dive back into the weeds. And we need to identify which type of person are we showing up? What type of leader am I showing up? So talking about leadership, what advice would you give others that want to go from technician to CEO and the demand on you to develop your leaders?
So people that want to go from technician to CEO, they need to have a learning mindset. Start out and reading. Probably half the books I read are about business and the other half are personal development. And up till the last couple of years, I hadn't read a book since high school, because I didn't like reading. I always felt like it was a chore to try to read. But when you start reading for that purpose of learning and bettering yourself and understanding, and sometimes you're reading it and it's just affirming stuff you've already known, and repetition, building the muscle memory around what good leadership is, what bad leadership is, what can work in what situations, as well as understand that, again, you're going to leave that 9-to-5 technician job and you're going to become, okay, now this is a 24-hour job.
Yeah. And I think, to that point, I think a lot of people don't read, or they might only be reading certain things. The thing that sticks out for me is, if I'm going to learn something, what am I learning? And you said it. Sometimes reading something it's new, or I'm just reminded of something that I've heard before. And that, which leads me to, a lot of people forget what they already know.
Yep.
And they don't focus on it. And then sometimes that becomes our weakness or our blind spot as a CEO, because I've learned this lesson 20 years ago. You learned it, in the military doing hard stuff. So there's things that are natural to you that have been ingrained and cultivated and grown within you. Now, when you look at a situation, it's like, why doesn't everybody solve a problem like this? Why doesn't everybody take ownership of the situation? Why doesn't everybody lead the same way? Tyler, I want to thank you for your time, man. I truly enjoy having a conversation with you. If people want to get hold of you, where do they go to speak to you? If they want you to be in their peer-to-peer network, they want to see your services, how do they get hold of you?
So they can reach me either email, tyler@fes-web.com. Phone is 207-464-8202.
Okay.
And then our website is fes-web.com.
FES-web.com.
Yep.
Perfect, man. Yeah. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you for tuning in. I'm always honored and blessed to have great leaders like Tyler on the call. Just remember, leadership is not one of those things that we graduate to. It's a state of being. It's a state of development. If you guys want to have a conversation with us, you're welcome to check us up at bergflow.com. Tyler, thank you for spending time with us. Really appreciate it. Have a great day, mate.
Yeah, you too.